Thank you for your attention on a Friday afternoon. I appreciate it. So the purpose of my presentation is the implementation of the first Bachelor of Science degree in nursing at a tribal college. And also, just as importantly, the second purpose is to help other tribal colleges ascertain and discern their next steps if they also would like to implement a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing. So I live on the Salish Kootenai College. I work at Salish Kootenai College, and I live on the Flathead Reservation where the college is. It's in western Montana. The Mission Mountains, as you can see on the slide, this is right outside my office window. And there is a recent graduate of ours with her dress that she made along with her mother and her grandmother's help. Our graduation was June 5th. Salish Kootenai College opened its doors in 1977. SKC is accredited by Northwest and offers certificates in, like for instance, highway construction and dental assisting. SKC also offers associate degrees, bachelor degrees, and was just approved to start their first master's degree in natural resources, as tribal employers are looking for those people. History of SKC Nursing. The first graduating class was in 1991 with a total of 104 quarter credits. And then SKC also has a RN to BSN completion program for those associate degree nurses who want to complete their bachelor's. And that first graduating class was in 2000. So that's a total of 76 credits in addition to that associate degree. And both programs are fully accredited with the voluntary accreditation, nursing accreditation agency, which is Accreditation Commission for Education in Nursing. The mission and vision of SKC Nursing is to continually try to provide the industry gold standard nursing degree option. And that should hopefully lead to highly qualified Native American nurses who can work in all healthcare organizations, which should lead to improved Native healthcare outcomes. Because as I am sure you are all aware, there is significant healthcare disparity among Native populations. And that is in part due to the disconnect between healthcare providers and Native populations. So for instance, in Montana, 6% of Montana residents are Native American, but less than 1% of nurses in Montana are Native Americans. So there is a disconnect there, which can lead to these healthcare disparities. Why is the four-year bachelor degree now the industry gold standard? The Indian Health Service, the Veterans Administration, military, all require a bachelor's. Public health and most large healthcare systems require bachelor degrees. And it really stems down to quality of nursing care. The Future of Nursing Initiative, which was housed under the Institute of Medicine, says, gee whiz, healthcare organizations, right now the healthcare death rate from errors is about the 5th leading cause of death. Reports vary. Some are as high as the 3rd leading cause of death. Some are the 8th, and some say the 5th, depending on how the data is tabulated. But in any event, you have more of a chance, if you're a patient in a hospital, of suffering harm or dying of a healthcare error than you do of the illness or the injury that landed you in the hospital to begin with. So errors are of a enormous magnitude. And studies have found that bachelor prepared nurses make fewer errors, which would make sense, 2 years of education versus 4 years of clinical as a student and so forth. And the other emphasis of why bachelor degree nurses may make fewer errors is that there's more of an emphasis in the curriculum on communication of interprofessional disciplines, because the Joint Commission, which accredits all hospitals who receive Medicare and Medicaid funding, Joint Commission says that communication errors are the #1 cause of sentinel events, either miscommunication, inaccurate communication, or omitted communication. So there is a lot more emphasis on communication in a bachelor's degree curriculum. There's more emphasis on problem solving, quality improvement, and those types of topics. So the gold standard now for hiring nurses is the BSN. So my project is actually a quality improvement project. I use the Focus PDCA project improvement methodology. And this is part of Dr. Schuert's cycle of improvement. The first thing was to articulate the goal. What exactly did I want to do? And I'll get in a few slides to my stakeholders. But the goal was to design and develop the curriculum, obtain approval, obtain accreditation, and implement the 4-year direct admit BSN. And I will discuss the definition of a direct admit program because it is based in large part on native ways. It's a total of 185 quarter credits, which falls within the guidelines of Northwest accreditation. I was very fortunate to have a partial course release of my full-time teaching load for 2 years as a result of a Montana Healthcare Foundation grant, who focuses on Native American initiatives to increase the health of Native Americans. So a Focus PDCA project improvement, some of you may be aware of that. If not, it's a combination of linear and circular. So you do it one step at a time, but you're always circling back to check in and see if you need to make revisions. And I call it, as the literature suggests, you either adopt the step that you've already taken, or you adapt it, modify it to some extent, or abandon it and say, that's not working, I have to go back to square one. Start with a needs assessment, and many of our speakers have already talked about community and tribal leaders, and this was very important. I met with many tribal health leaders, tribal leaders, Indian Health Service, nurses and directors, local employers, regional employers, and state employers to see who exactly are they hiring. A nursing degree is expensive, so you don't want your nursing students to not have a job. And some of our associate degree graduates in nursing were not able to find jobs. And they were not able actually to start paying back their Indian Health Service scholarship if they were the recipients of that. So I talked to employers, who are you hiring? And just to put this into context, for instance, the Philippines have already had a mandatory bachelor degree in nursing for all nurses for many years now. So if we're competing, there's a lot of Filipino nurses, we needed to get to where we were offering a degree that was ethical as well, that these students could graduate and find jobs. I also surveyed and interviewed many students, past graduates, current students, and to find out if they were able to find jobs and why or why not. And as I mentioned, the associate degree nursing students had a very difficult time finding positions. And then after all of that, then I was ready to approach administration. There had been some informal conversations with administration beforehand, but I really needed to have the lay of the land because, as someone had wisely said during their presentation on college presidents of TCUs, they're very community focused. And so I needed to get the pulse of the community and the tribal community before I took this proposal forward to college administration. The rationale for starting a BSN and retiring the ASN. Some of you in the audience may not have an ASN, and you may just be wanting to start a BSN from scratch. So once the administration gave the green light, then I could move ahead with my stakeholders. But this may take a while because the college presidents have a lot of constituents. They have their tribal council, they have their tribal communities, they have their non-tribal communities, they have Northwest accreditation, and they have the board. And so they have a lot of different entities that they have to check in with and see what they think. So this can take months, up to a year even, so that the administration can do their due diligence. There may be some resistance. As I said, it's an expensive program. There's clinical instructors, there's hospitals to have affiliation agreements with, there's expensive lab equipment, simulators, so that you're not practicing on real people, you're practicing on simulators. So it's an expensive degree, and it will take administration time to say yes or no. Once you get that yes, then it was time for me, and it would be time for you, to check in with all of your stakeholders. First of all, I checked in with the Nursing Accreditation Agency. I had to find out what were the policies on retiring one degree and adding another. And then of course, as you all know, the multiple reports and paperwork, and then the same with the college accreditation, and then the Montana State Board of Nursing, who actually approves programs in the state of Montana. The others accredit, the Board of Nursing approves, and all of that paperwork. Financial aid, this is a huge component. I never had any idea how much financial aid weighs into college students. That is one of the reasons the associate degree, it was started at SKC as a 3-year associate degree, which led to problems then for those graduates to finish their bachelor's, which is a 2-year. So it ended up to be a 5-year degree, which really interfered with their financial aid. And another discussion point with the financial aid campus director was that many scholarships and financial aid funding only subsidize a student's first degree. So if they had earned their associate degree but could not find a job and had to finish their bachelor's degree, that was not subsidized. So a financial aid person, it's amazing the resource that they are, because they will know from a student success and financial point of view about the degree offerings. I also met with enrollment services, admissions, registration, academic success. Who knew how complicated an academic catalog is till you change out one program, start another, change the course numbers, the prereqs, the co-reqs, the program of study, get it on the website, talk to the campus recruiter. And then, as in a focused PDCA model, it was time to circle back. Talk with everybody, circle back. Keep talking to the other people, circle back, so that all of your stakeholders are constantly in the loop. I think I probably have 3 notebooks full now of meeting dates, who I talked with, and the next steps, and people's names and what they were going to do next, just to keep track of all of these moving parts. So then it was time to really use that wisdom and create a timeline of teaching out the associate degree and teaching in a bachelor's. From Northwest accreditation to the nursing accreditation to the State Board of Nursing and the college administration, none of them wanted any students left in the pipeline because that really would be unethical. And many of the speakers today have talked about how TCUs are student focused. And that is definitely one of the key parts to have a very methodical teach out, teach in plan so that no student was left stranded. So we actually had a 3-year teach out plan for the associate degree. In fact, our last associate degree class graduates next year, which would be 2022. But I met with all of them in that first year prereqs to let them know they were actually going to be the last class. And then we did not admit any more students. So no student was left in the pipeline. So we got the ASN figured out, so no students were left in the pipeline. And then I had to figure out when to start the BSN admission year because there were quite a few, again, moving parts. The college could not afford to have one program end and then another one start because there would be so much tuition fluctuation. And nursing is the second largest program at Salish Kootenai College. This fall, we will have a total of 105 students. The only other larger program at SKC is the education department. So we are about a fourth of the entire student body. And so our enrollment numbers definitely impact the college bottom line. And you know, none of us have 2 nickels to rub together. And so it had to be a very methodical plan so that the tuition fluctuation did not harm the college. The other thing that I had to keep in mind was faculty layoffs. It's very difficult to find master's prepared nursing faculty or doctorates, and I didn't want to lay them off. I was afraid I would never get them back. And right now, SKC, I'm proud to say, has 20% of our nursing faculty are fully enrolled tribal members. And that is wonderful. We are growing our own. And so I didn't want to lay anybody off. So that was another reason to kind of do this lockstep method. And lastly, I could not have our associate degree students compete with our bachelor degree students in clinical placement. It's very difficult to find clinical placement. Students have to drive 1 hour north or 1 hour south to go to a hospital for their clinical. And they will only take so many spots. So I had to time it so that the associate degree students would be out of the hospital by the time the bachelor students were ready to begin their hospital clinical. The biggest challenge of all, curriculum. That's no surprise to anyone sitting here today. It's a cultural focus on all of our courses, and I chose what major documents to inform the curriculum so that it would continue to be accredited. And you can see those 4 major documents. These are the chief curriculum documents for all nursing programs up to and including the doctorate level. And I have those on my reference slide for anyone that's interested in them. So I use the big picture and andragogical concepts of spiraling, build on past experiences, and then progress from simple to complex. We've designed clinical, and we focus on the native population, either in hospitals or in community sites. And we start clinical in our BSN at the sophomore level. Some major colleges and mainstream colleges start at the junior level, but we have found that students are better retained if they can really get on into that hands-on in their sophomore year. And then link all courses and student learning outcomes to the end of program learning outcomes, of which culture competency and providing culturally congruent care is one of our main themes. And then design these best practice courses with a great deal of input from tribal health and our tribal leaders and our past graduates. We have lab and clinical that mirror the Native patient population. And in fact, we've been asked to collaborate with University of Providence and teach them how to help share our wisdom on how to provide culturally congruent care via virtual simulation. So we've been really happy about that. They are up in Great Falls and near the Ani Nakota Reservation. We held lots of nurse advisory committee meetings to get their input. And I met with a lot of people on campus, other faculty, to determine their expert opinion on which course level we should include in our program. I had the curriculum, but they knew what level math, they knew which chemistry course, which microbiology course, and that thing. So we are a direct admit model. We admit students directly into the bachelor's degree. They don't come in, take gen eds for 2 years, and then apply to nursing. So this really models the Native culture. We have many students that are place bound. And we also have students who they're not competitive. They don't want to compete with the person sitting next to them for those few coveted spots in years 3 and 4. We do not over-admit. We have clinical spots for every nursing student, and we want them to be fabulously successful. So we help them. We have a tutor, and they help each other. They love study groups, and they work together as a community. They're not competing for spots. And then as we close, I meet with students regularly. Of course, it was the perfect storm. Fall of 2020 was our first year of the BSN. It was the pandemic. We were on lockdown. We're trying to transition out the ASN, start the BSN. Faculty were scattered. It was, yeah, you all know, you lived it as well. So I'm continuing to assess the student performance. I frequently meet with stakeholders to keep bringing up the BSN so they don't get confused with the ASN, and we're constantly updating our website. So as you move forward, you just may want to check your budget and see if you can apply for a grant for some BSN educational supplies. Keep reassessing, keep lots of good notes, call me or email me. I read today though that if you have gray hair, it can actually turn back to your normal color once you calm down. Now, I didn't know that. They've done a study on it. So there, who knows? Who knew that you could turn your gray hair around? But call me if you would like to start your BSN. Stay encouraged. Stay encouraged. Outcomes, incoming freshmen, we have 38 already enrolled. Background checks are done, immunizations and all of that. 65% are Native. And our sophomore BSNs, our rising ones who were the first cohort last year, we have 50% Native. And you can see the tribes represented. And we already have, I bet once a week, I get a call from an employer who wants Native American nurse graduates with their BSN. IHS, the VA, tribal health, hospitals, because many entities are trying to affect and mitigate those healthcare outcome disparities among Native populations. Outcomes, there's a great deal of student interest, administration satisfied, that's a big one. For all of you in here, you know that. Employer interest, and there wasn't as much resistance as I thought there might be in the retirement of the ASN. And as I said, many calls of interest from other tribal colleges and other parties. So in the end, concluding, BSN degree does help Native students earn the standard and industry standard nursing degree, which leads to immediate employment, thus the provision of culturally congruent care across the region, state, and country which can lead to decreased healthcare outcome disparities among the Native populations. So Lynn Letch, thank you.